Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the brand new year and another episode of Fighting the Void. It's me, Ginger, here, back after a couple week break, much needed. Um, Not a whole lot got done, I'm not going to lie. I wasn't terribly productive over the last couple of weeks. I had thoughts, I had plans, I had ambitions. And then I was like, you know what? I'm really liking not having to do a whole lot. So I kept it that way, pretty much wrapped up a whole bunch of side work, bunch of side editing jobs, and took some time off and just hung out with the kids and actually read a book, mostly just to read a book. It was amazing. I had Christmas Day itself was so relaxing that I don't think I had been that relaxed in literally years. It was it was wonderful. But now here we are back for a brand new year of Fighting the Void. And I think I should let you know a little bit of what we've got planned. Oh, side note before I do that. Apparently, if you want to destroy libertarian Twitter, all you got to do is knock off an Iranian terrorist. Just saying. I'm amused. Anyway, enough of that. What do we got looking forward to in the new year? Well, first and foremost, Crystal and I had a talk, and she decided she doesn't want to continue being a co-host here at Fighting the Void. It's not like she isn't going to be around. She'll probably be around for the occasional episode. And also, she's going to still be doing the Blunt Talk with Red. So she's not disappearing. So if you like Crystal, don't worry. You're still going to get plenty of Crystal, which is cool because I like Crystal. And I want to, and more Crystal is always good. So there's going to be that. And that brings me immediately into probably the second biggest and most important thing is I'm going to be trying to build Fighting the Void into a network. I've got a small handful of people on board with this concept already. I'm working on building it. So I'm kind of on the lookout for people who have got ideas, people who want to do a podcast but don't necessarily know how to get started, or they don't feel like they can do more than one a week like we do here, or even if you can't do more than one a month, really. If you've got an idea, honestly, let me know. Gingerman Editor, find me on Twitter or at Fighting Void. The show's account, DMs are open. Just send me something, or if you want to email, fightthevoid@gmail.com. If you've got an idea for something you'd like to do, just some sort of topic you'd like to be, hey, I know a lot about this. I can discuss it at length and be engaging with it. Let me know. And we can probably build this thing out a little bit, which would be awesome. I'm looking to hopefully I would like to have daily content on the page, but again, that just means you need multiple people contributing content. It doesn't mean that you have to do it once a week, or certainly not once a day. Whatever. Let me know, and we'll see if we can work it out. And which brings me to the next thing. Well, related to that is, you've got Crystal and Red with Blunt Talk, which is them just riffing about whatever subject it is that they decide they want to riff about a little bit. Usually it's more of a personal, social sort of thing, but who knows, whatever it is they decide to do is cool. The main show of Fighting the Void will continue, which will continue to be primarily guest-centered, doing interviews about a variety of topics. Red, for example, is going to be on next week, and we're just going to be discussing, I don't know, whatever it is that comes to mind. Maybe a little bit about the whole concept of political allegiances. We were discussing that, so if we're still feeling that a little bit, we'll probably jump into it. And yes, Jake, you're right. You do need quite a lot of people for that. Ideally, you'd only need 5 or 6 people who are willing to do one thing a week. But, whatever. We'll work on that. Anyway, like I said, the main the main show is going to continue the way that it has been, which, like I said, guest centered, doing interviews about whatever. We've got Jeff coming back from the GK podcast. He's going to be coming back in February. My friend Paige is going to be coming back sometime in February. I'll be doing. I'll probably do a podcast actually from DC. I'm going to be there for the March for Life again this year, so I'll probably fire something up from my hotel room after the fact, and let you guys know what it was all about. Obviously, that will most likely not be guest centered, but it'll be directly live event centered, which is kind of cool. Other than that, I'm always working on bringing in new guests and everything to talk about whatever. Also, another part of the content that we're going to be having is, I've mentioned this a couple times already, I'm going to be starting reading through the early Christian writings, just small segments, easily digestible, no commentary, just to read it. Because I don't want to be accused of stacking the deck at all. Just, I'm going to be going through reading, and first up right here, I don't know how well you can read that, but this little book collects a number of different early works. First and foremost of which is the Didache, which I'm going to be getting into. In fact, I'll probably be starting that this coming week, and I'll try to be set consistent date and everything for that, so when it's coming. So there's going to be that, and that's the big thing. I would like the other shows, the other content, to be focused. Focus like on early Christian writing, or if somebody's got an itch to talk about science, which I do. I mentioned last year in this kind of an episode that I wanted to start doing science coverage. Unfortunately, that it just never panned out. Never really had the time to get into it. If I could find a way to make it a semi-regular thing where I just talk about a couple of cool science stories, that would be fun, because I find that science coverage is dramatically lacking in especially the conservative end, or the right side of the political blogosphere sort of thing. Nobody really talks about it, and it's not, except as it relates to politics. And I guess, if your main thing is I just want to talk about politics, that's cool. But I don't know about you guys. I've got other interests. I don't like just talking about politics all the time. It eventually gets boring, and you wind up getting caught up in this whole, oh my gosh, so-and-so said this. And I'm just so outraged over the latest thing that somebody said about somebody else. It gets mind-numbingly boring after a while. If you think, once you stop being outraged, you realize it's incredibly boring. It's like, I like the substance, and I do think it's important to know a little bit of what's going on out there and everything, but the day-to-day freak out over this, that, and the other thing, same thing. Jake, I don't know what a replicability crisis is. You enlighten me. Enlighten me. For those who are watching or listening to this after the fact, Jake is he's in the chat room and feeding me a couple of things here and there. So anyway, that's the big stuff that we're looking for. Oh, hey, and Crystal showed up in the chat as well. Hi there, Crystal. Just let people know what the plan is there, Crystal. Like, like how you're gonna keep doing the blunt talk with Red and all of that fun stuff. Anyway, coffee break. Sorry. I think. Actually, that is a good topic, Jake. Replicability crisis. That is the fact that, apparently, according to Jake here, this is the fact that over 50% of the results from experiments can't be reproduced. That is fascinating. And I do want to actually look into that a little bit. That actually is incredibly interesting. Jake, maybe we'll just have to have you on to help educate us about that sometime in the near future. That would actually be fantastic. Also, I might try to broaden out a little bit, because one of the things I used to do, I used to talk to authors a fair amount on another podcast that I had, which was just Coffee Books Repeat. I dropped that one in favor of doing this one. And I didn't bring a whole lot of authors onto here, mostly because of the fact that that I didn't want to get them tied. I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable tied in with the politics of the show. But since I'm not going to be talking a ton directly about politics, it's still going to come up, obviously. I try to get some more creative types on, here and there, as I find people that I think would be willing to come on and talk about their work. Also, I want to get more into the substance, get into the, really delve into like the philosophical and frankly theological underpinnings of a lot of the issues that we're having today. We've always tried to do that a little bit on the show, but I really want to try to lean into that a whole lot more, because one, it's a lot more interesting. Two, I think the fact that there hasn't been enough of revisiting that is part of how we got to this just insane swamp that we're in now, where a lot of the political labels and everything that are out there, political and ideological labels, they don't seem to have a lot of meaning anymore. Nobody can define exactly what it means to be conservative. Libertarians constantly fight. Liberals, they just keep coming up with the next crazy cause to celebrate. It's insane. And it's frankly just totally nuts. And again, part of it, at the very least, is nobody does that. There hasn't been enough of that going back, re-examining what the roots of things are. And this gets into another debate it'd be interesting to have on the show. I just would need to find the proper the proper debate partner on this one, which would be, the type of conservative that like Edmund Burke and Russell Kirk tended to promote, which was essentially just going with whatever the tradition was. It's a gross oversimplification. Okay, that's a gross oversimplification, but for purposes of argument, it really heavily relied on that, especially Burke. He was flat out against the re-examination of principles, from what I can tell. And I think that was a gross mistake, because, to be fair, he felt that the re-examination of principles and the led was either part of or led to the disregarding of tradition, and that led to the French Revolution, which he was contemporary with that. So I could understand where he's coming from a little bit, but the problem is unquestioningly going along with traditions is exactly what leads to the French Revolution. Because eventually somebody does start asking the questions, and then all the average people who just go to the field or go to the factory or go to the cubicle farm, whatever, and then come back, and they have neither the time. They have typically had neither the time or the energy to really do the deep dive on why it is they believe what they believe, why they do what they do. Somebody starts questioning it, then all of a sudden the stuff that's tearing down what they believe and what they do, the stuff that's tearing that down is the only coherent argument they've ever heard that goes beyond, well, this is just what we do. And that's how the the French Revolution was able to get so many followers so quickly. That's how the Bolsheviks were able to do it. People started asking questions about traditions that people uncritically accepted. The traditions may have been perfectly fine and well and good, but if you uncritically accept them, eventually somebody's going to criticize it, and you're not going to have an answer. And then, just to avoid feeling like an idiot, you're going to go with a person that's tearing down what you believe, or at least a lot of people will. And that's a huge issue. And anyway, it'd be fun to have that debate with someone who's like a strong Burkean type conservative, which, from what I can tell, is mostly the National Review type crowd. Anyway, that was a bit of a rant there. I didn't plan to go on that. But politically homeless, yeah, madness, that actually is fairly accurate. A lot of people are these days. And it's splitting off into a lot of different disparate camps. It's interesting. And I'm curious as to see how it's all going to play out. I think I read an article recently, somebody talking about the rise of, for lack of a better term, post-liberal conservatism, or at least post-liberal politics, which is essentially dropping the idea that you can have I think, and again, I'm running a little bit off of memory here, basically dropping the idea that you could have a morally neutral system of government. And it's something that I've been pondering for a long time myself. Can you have any system of government that is truly morally neutral? And I'm increasingly convinced that the answer to that is no. Does that mean you can't be multicultural? To an extent, yes. To an extent. There is the possibility that of lots of different cultures being able to coexist together, absolutely. And I don't mean even segregated into their own separate neighborhoods or anything like that. But they do have to there has to be a certain amount of commonality. Like, you can't put it this way, you couldn't like drop the most severe versions of Sharia law into the middle of a Midwestern suburb. That's just not going to work. Okay, I'm sorry. Conversely, you couldn't drop a Midwestern suburb into the middle of the Middle East either. It wouldn't work. They're not compatible with one another. That's not even to say anything about which one is superior or not. Obviously, I have my own thoughts about that. I'm a Catholic living in the Midwest. There you go. But the point is, there is a point where incompatibility is reached, and I think we do need to recognize it. And that goes beyond like basic laws like, thou shalt not kill, or murder, preferably, more accurately. So yeah, and that is true. A small government can be more morally neutral than a big government, but even there, you get into the question of how small is small. That's the big thing where libertarians always fight over each other. They always fight amongst each other, because as soon as you take a position like this, such and such a thing shouldn't be allowed, or whatever it is, whether it's cocaine or prostitution or drag queen story hour, that sort of thing. As soon as somebody says that shouldn't be allowed, well, so all of a sudden you're not a real libertarian. All of a sudden you're a jackbooted fascist, according to some. I've seen that going around. So again, I don't know that you can have a truly neutral system of government. Now, this is part of a debate that actually Jake and I have had a little bit over on Discord, which essentially you can have a relatively morally neutral government at, like, say, the federal level. The state level, honestly, I'm kind of unsure of. In our present day situation, I'm not sure how much relevance individual state levels really matter as far as where we are now. and I'm speaking again as a practical matter, not as a constitutional matter. As a constitutional matter, it matters. As a practical matter, the way things developed, I don't know. But essentially, you can have a very small, mostly morally neutral federal government. But it's when you get down to the municipal level, we get the level of individual towns and cities. Now, personally, I think that they should be able to do whatever they please. Well, not whatever they please, but there should be a lot of leeway when you get down to like an individual town level for the local citizens to set mostly whatever draconian rules they would like. And that's obviously going to run into a lot of things where people are going to be like, I don't like that. That's a horrible law. Well, the good news is if it's down to the individual town level, if you don't like what town A is doing, you can move down the road to town B. Relatively simple, relatively easy. And the federal government isn't involved at all. The federal government, yes, would have to raise some sort of money for the common defense. It would just have to happen. So yeah, there would probably still be some sort of taxes, much smaller though. States perhaps wouldn't have any tax, because again, I'm not sure exactly what their role would be if we were to like go about restructuring things. To me, it seems like essentially just duplicating the federal government within a different border, personally, but I could be persuaded otherwise. And then, of course, like I said, you get down to the municipal level, and you could have a lot of different laws that get down into the nitty gritty that definitely are not remotely morally neutral. And I think an individual community should be able to set whatever rules and standards that it would like. Again, obviously within reason. If town A says pedophilia is fine, I think town B should invade. But anyway, that's enough of that little aside. But again, more of a fun, another fun debate to get into at length at some point here on the show. And it's the kind of thing I'd like to continue discussing. Again, getting down into the roots, getting down into examining more and more to that end. Perhaps we'll do some, in addition to doing early Christian writings, maybe we'll get into doing the early documents of American history, which I probably would read that along with commentaries and everything, just to help give that more a little bit more context. The reasons for that difference are perhaps a discussion for another time, why I would do that with documents of American history as opposed to the early Christian writings. Well, again, with the early Christian writings, I don't want to be accused of stacking the deck in favor of the Catholic reading of them. And it's mostly because that stuff does go way back in history. And I think just the exposure to them will get my point across. And it doesn't need any additional, it won't need much additional commentary, to be perfectly honest. But with American history, it is much closer in time. I think there is much less leeway for different interpretations than a lot of people would like to think. At the same time, there's also more leeway than a lot of people would like to think. I've been doing a lot of learning about American history myself in the recent months, and a lot of the debates we've been having since the ink was dry. Literally. Literally, they were arguing about how far down application of the Constitution should go, how state rights were to be interpreted, and all of that, pretty much from the beginning. It's because it's a government of people. It's just how it rolls. So anyway, to wrap things up, and yes, Manus, my mess is a little bit on the on the disorganized side. But by golly, I know where. Okay, no, I don't know where everything is. I'm not gonna lie. I can say that this pile right here, this is mostly all having to do with economics. All of that to some way, shape, or degree. There's a few oddball things, like I've got Steven Pinker up there, The History of Mathematics, Secrets of the Samurai, and some old textbooks from my college days, all over there in the back corner. And I still have physical CDs because I'm old. Screw you. Anyway, anyway, yeah. That and actually, some of those books we'll probably even get into in the coming year. So, just to wrap things up here before I go off on another just utterly random rant. Crystal, she won't be around as a regular co-host, which makes me a little sad, but she'll still be doing Blunt Talk with Red, which makes me happy. And trying to build a network here. I've got a couple people on board. I'm going to be working on firming up plans with those people in the next few months, in the next few not months, weeks, and then reaching out to others. If you have ideas, if you have a friend who has ideas and would like to work together, let me know. That'd be fantastic. And after that, like I said, getting more into a lot of the philosophical and theological meat of things, starting up a couple of other regular shorter things. Regular show's going to stay what it is, which is, again, interviews. Upcoming, we've got Red coming up, probably talk about the crazy political allegiances, breaking away from them, yada, 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 all of that. I'll be at the March for Life in DC. So, hey, if you're going to be in DC for the March for Life or for any other reason at that same time, shoot me a DM. If it works out, maybe we can hang out. That'd be cool. And let's see, we got Jeff from the GK podcast coming back probably February 1st. And then sometime after that, my friend Paige will be coming back, maybe to share a little bit about Anglicanism and some new stuff they're doing at her parish, which is pretty cool. And other than that, I just want to say I hope you guys had a freaking great Christmas, or whatever the heck it is you celebrate. I celebrate Christmas, so Merry freaking Christmas. Merry freaking Christmas. And by the way, it's actually still in many places still the Christmas season. Catholics celebrate it up until tomorrow, or if you're following the traditional Latin calendar, till Monday. And if you are in certain areas of the world, they actually celebrate the Christmas season all the way to the Feast of the Presentation, or Candlemas, which is in February. So there you go. So Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And until next week, y'all keep fighting the good fight.